It started with a photograph, not a dramatic one. No blood, no shadows, no blurred figure in the background. Just a house. Low to the ground, slanted roof, windows too dark for the daylight. It was surrounded by flat desert on every side. No path leading to it, no tire tracks, no footprints. Just the house, floating in a frame of sun-bleached sand. The photo came from my friend Elliot. He was the kind of person who would disappear for days without telling anyone, then show up with strange souvenirs and stories that always felt half-invented. He said it was out near the Four Corners region, somewhere deep off-grid. Not on any map, he wrote. But I wasn't lost. I was meant to find it. That was the last thing he ever sent me. No calls, no texts, nothing on social. Just gone. I waited a week, then 2. Filed a report. The cops shrugged, said he was probably traveling or didn't want to be found. But Elliot wasn't the type to go silent without a reason, especially not after sending something like that. I printed the photo, took it to a local ranger. He didn't say anything for a long time, just stared at it like it was a riddle. Then he handed it back and said, flatly, "We don't talk about that house." I asked what he meant, and he just walked away. That's how it began. A breadcrumb no one wanted to admit existed. I don't know what made me go looking. Maybe guilt, maybe curiosity, but something pulled at me. Not just the mystery, it was the house itself, the way it looked, the impossible stillness around it, the way it felt like it had been waiting to be seen. It took 3 days of driving through places GPS refused to map. Old oil roads, washed out paths, stretches of nothing where even the air felt scraped clean of memory. I kept the photo on the passenger seat, checking it against every shape on the horizon, and then, there it was. Exactly as in the photo. Not similar, exact. Same angle, same shadow, same 2 dark windows. But something was wrong with the scale. The closer I got, the more I felt like it wasn't getting bigger, just clearer, like I was being resized to fit it. There was no gate, no mailbox, no signs, just sand, smooth as silk, surrounding it like a moat, and the wind. The wind didn't blow right. It curled backward, tugging at my collar like it was trying to lead me away. But I stepped forward, and that's when I saw it. Sand, rising, not a dust devil, not kicked up by my steps, just rising, a stream of it drifting upward from the base of the porch steps, as if gravity had briefly forgotten which way was down. I should have turned back then, but Elliot was somewhere inside, and the house had already started to recognize me. The door wasn't locked. It didn't even creak when it opened. It simply gave way, like it had been waiting for someone to remember how it moved. Inside, the air was stale, but strangely warm, not the kind of dry heat you'd expect in a desert house. It felt like someone had just stepped out of the room and would return in moments. But there was no one. The first thing I noticed was the silence. It wasn't ordinary. Not the kind you hear when no one's around. This silence had weight to it, like a thick fabric pressing against your ears. Every sound I made, footsteps, breath, the creak of my backpack zipper, felt muffled, delayed, like it had to push through something invisible before I could hear it. I walked deeper into the main room. Furniture sat perfectly untouched, dustless, but I watched a grain of sand lift off the floor, then another, dozens, drifting upward in a slow spiral, collecting on the ceiling beams. I blinked, thinking it was some visual trick, some heat-induced illusion. But no, the sand was falling. Up. Time didn't behave right inside that house. Clocks hung on walls, but their hands ticked backward. Not smoothly. They jerked like something was forcing them into place. A digital watch on the counter blinked random numbers, then spelled a word I couldn't make out before it went black. My phone, dead. No signal, no charge. Even though I'd just topped it off at the last gas station. Then the lights flickered. Not electric lights, but daylight. As if the sun outside had hiccuped. The shadows in the room shifted for just a second, and when they did, a hallway appeared on the far side of the living room. It hadn't been there before. I would have seen it, but now it stood open, welcoming, unlit. I stepped into it, slowly running my hand along the wall to steady myself. That's when I noticed something etched into the wallpaper. Faint, a pattern. No, not a pattern. Words written backward. I held up my phone and turned on the flashlight, angled it just right. It wasn't English, or any language I recognized. But somehow I understood it. This is not the first time you've come here. My heart stuttered. I reached out to touch the words, and for a moment they felt warm, like fresh ink. Behind me, I heard something fall. I turned quickly, expecting a chair or a picture frame, but there was nothing out of place, except the sand on the ceiling. It was gone, and now it was starting to pool on the walls, like it had learned a new direction. I kept moving. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Every few steps, I passed a doorway, some shut, some cracked open. Through one, I saw a kitchen frozen in time, a meal set out, steam still rising, but no people. In another, a mirror reflected not the hallway, but a beach I'd never been to. The deeper I went, the more the house bent. Sounds came before I made them. Footsteps echoed from behind, before I moved in the air. It felt like it was holding its breath, like the house was waiting for me to ask the wrong question, or remember something I was supposed to forget. At some point, I stopped trying to track which direction I was going. The hallway forked and folded on itself, bending like a maze, designed not to trap you, but to unravel you. Every time I thought I'd reached the end, I'd step through a doorway and find myself back where I started, or somewhere I vaguely recognized, but not quite. The rooms remembered me, I think, but not correctly. One room had a window that looked out on the desert, just as I'd seen it when I arrived. Another had a window but it looked out on a forest, wet, foggy, pine-thick. I hadn't seen a tree in days. I stood there for a long time, watching the branches sway in a wind I couldn't hear. And then, for a brief second, I saw someone walk past the window, a figure in a heavy coat. They turned toward me. It was me, not just a reflection. It didn't mimic my movements. It stared, then kept walking. I slammed the door shut and turned back toward the hallway, but there was no hallway. Only a single room now, circular, with 6 doors, none of them marked, all of them closed. I chose one at random and stepped through. It was the same room, but colder, and the dust, or whatever passed for dust in this place, had started to rise again, this time from the seams of the floorboards. It curled upward like smoke, dancing in reverse. As I moved through the space, I saw myself again, not in a mirror this time, but seated in a chair in the far corner, facing away. I backed out, took another door, the room again. Now with a portrait on the wall, my parents, but younger, and something was off about their eyes. Not cruel, not hollow, just disappointed, like they'd watched me make a mistake they'd seen before. Every door led back to that same space. The only things that changed were the details. Sometimes a smell, sometimes a sound. One time, I heard a woman weeping in the corner, but when I turned to look, the room was empty. Another time, a child's voice whispered something just behind my ear, too quick to catch, but enough to make my skin crawl. I tried leaving a mark, dragging my fingernail across the wallpaper, flipping a chair, breaking a light bulb. Didn't matter. Each entrance reset the room, except one. One door had something under it, a flicker, not light, shadow, moving in reverse, like it was crawling back into the darkness rather than trying to escape it. I opened that one. The moment I stepped through, gravity twisted. Not violently, just enough to make me stumble. The floor sloped upward, or maybe the ceiling dropped, I couldn't tell. But everything in the room, the furniture, the dust, even the echoes, leaned toward the corners, like they were trying to escape being remembered. This room didn't reflect anything I knew. It didn't feel wrong, it felt unfinished. And at the center of the floor, drawn in a soft layer of ash, was a symbol. A spiral made of arrows, all pointing inward. I stepped closer, and that's when I saw the writing along the walls. Tiny, cramped, etched into every available inch. Not carved, written with something soft, like soot or coal. Line after line, name after name, hundreds of them, and at the very bottom, one sentence written over and over again. You are not the first version of you to come here. I didn't notice the whispering at first. It came softly, not through my ears, but somewhere behind my eyes. Like a thought I hadn't formed yet. Not intrusive, but persistent. Gentle enough to ignore. Until it started finishing my memories for me. The voice wasn't mine. It didn't sound male or female. It was more like an echo of something I used to believe. I'd remember a moment from childhood, a summer day, a song on the radio, my mother laughing from another room, and the voice would quietly add, "That wasn't how it happened." It wasn't accusing. It sounded sad. That's what made it worse. I sat in the middle of the ash-lined spiral for hours, maybe days. Time didn't pass the way it should. The light didn't shift. Hunger didn't come, but the memories did. One by one, like pages torn from a book I didn't know I'd written. Each came back slightly wrong, then more wrong. My high school graduation, except my father, was missing. A birthday party I was sure never happened. A breakup I never had, but now remembered vividly. The whisper told me their names. The people I could have become. The people I almost was. And the more I listened, the more I realized that the house wasn't haunting me with ghosts. It was haunting me with echoes, versions of myself who had walked through different doors, made different decisions, spoken different truths. This wasn't just a house, it was a vault of possibilities. A mausoleum of could-have-beens, and the sand. It wasn't just rising for no reason. It was recording, flowing up into the walls, embedding every memory, every step, every thought I had the moment I had it. Preserving not what was, but what almost was. The house wasn't reversing time, it was folding it, compressing it into a single, unbearable present. I tried to stand, but I felt heavy, not in my limbs, but in my identity. Like I'd picked up too many versions of myself and couldn't carry them all. I stumbled into the hallway again, dizzy with recognition of things I'd never done, faces I'd never kissed, lies I'd never told, but now regretted anyway. The voice began again. This time, it used my voice. Not how I sound now, but how I used to sound when I was younger. Innocent, naive, hopeful. You didn't come here for Elliot, it said. You came here because something inside you always knew. You'd been here before. I sank to the floor. Not because I was tired, but because I finally understood the truth. This house wasn't a place you found by accident. It was a consequence. The exit wasn't marked. I didn't find it so much as feel it. A cold pressure at the base of my spine, like a magnet pulling me toward one wall in the spiral room. There was no door, just wallpaper, the same as every other surface. But the moment I touched it, it gave way. Like breathing against silk, I pushed through. The light changed instantly. I was outside, not stepping through a threshold, not stumbling out a door, just suddenly, standing in the desert. The house was gone. No footprint, no dust. Just the horizon bending in every direction, the same way it had when I first arrived. Only this time, it was dusk, and I was older. I didn't feel older, exactly, but my hands had new scars. My clothes didn't fit right. My watch was gone. The backpack I carried was heavier, filled with things I didn't recognize. Notebooks in my handwriting. Dates I couldn't place. Receipts from towns I'd never visited. But they were mine. The ink smelled fresh. My name was on every page. I checked my phone. It worked again. New notifications. Missed calls from people I hadn't spoken to in years. A voicemail from my sister asking why I never came to the funeral. But whose funeral? I didn't listen to the rest. When I reached the nearest road, a passing car slowed down for me. The driver rolled down his window, stared for a long second, then asked, Are you the one they said disappeared 10 years ago?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I remembered disappearing last week. And then something else, something quieter, came to me. Not a thought, a rhythm, my footsteps. They didn't match the sound of my walk. They came a second too early, like they were being remembered before they happened. I reached town just after midnight. No one recognized me. The bar I used to go to had been turned into a real estate office. The apartment I'd lived in had someone else's name on the buzzer. Even the bakery on 6th Street, the one that always smelled like burnt cinnamon, was gone. But the sand on my boots stayed. It wouldn't brush off. And when I looked in the mirror later that night, I saw something behind my reflection, just for a moment. A flicker, a house, flickering into view and then gone again, like it had followed me. Or maybe, like I never left it at all. I don't know how long it's been now. Sometimes time moves, normally. Other times, I blink and lose hours. And every so often, when I lie down to sleep, I feel grains of sand rising from the mattress, lifting upward, like the house is still watching me, still collecting, still waiting for the next version of me to come home.